Hi everyone. So next thing we are going to discuss about is TypeORM entities and TypeORM migrations, right? So we'll talk about how you define the entities, how you define the relationship, how you trigger the migrations, how you create new migration, how you run the migration, how you synchronize the entities into the database tables. Okay. So for that we are using the same example. What we need is we need one TypeORM config, one ORM config.ts, which we can have at the root. This ORM config is just talking about, okay, at which particular directory your entities are, what is your migration directory. So in source, I will create one migration folder. There we will keep our migrations. src app domain, inside domain, we can have our entities with the entity.tjs, because it is the output. It is first building the entities and then it is running the migrations on the entities, because it is running the migrations on the dist folder, dist src app domain. Migrations should be on the src migrations, src subscriber. Okay, now we can actually populate some of the package JSON definitions to run the migrations. So we'll go to our package JSON. Here we don't have them, so I will just try to populate them using TypeORM CLI. We will be running all those things. Test E2E. I will explain what is these. I mean, you might have seen these in many projects. TypeORM CLI, generate, run, revert, and sync. Right? When you do these scripts, when you run these scripts, you already connected to the database, and this is your ORM config.ts. So once you do the TypeORM CLI, because it uses the TypeORM CLI, it looks for your this ORM config, which is in the root, and it will check the definitions, okay, from in which directory migrations needs to be created. Okay, so if I go to NX console, migrations generate, I mean, this is not the full command. We need to also specify the migration name. Right here we need to specify the name and the path. So what we can do is, I will try to see if it works. I will go inside that application, cd apps, and here we can do npm run. What is the command? Migration generate, and we need to specify the name, I think. Okay, this is create a new migration file options. I forgot it should be -n. Let me just do the migrate command. npm run migration run. So what it does is it looks for your migration folders. If there are any migrations created, it will run them against the database. npm run migration run. What happens? TypeORM migration run -cli.json runs all the migrations. Missing required argument data source. Okay, so this is the change I think they have done in the TypeORM 3.0.0. Okay, so if I just see the TypeORM here, nestjs TypeORM, and it is 0.3.12. Okay, so I understood that we need to use CLIs with the different arguments. I mean, these are compatible with the 0.2.x. That's why we are not able to execute them. Okay, so after looking here and there in the documentation, I finally figured it out how we can do the migration in 0.3. I mean, obviously things have changed. Earlier we used to do a simple JSON file, JSON object, it used to return. Now it should be returning a data source. You just have a simple variable and export that data source, and what all argument it will have, these you already know. I mean, you just need to pass these options: name, entities, migrations, and subscribers. I mean, that is just a URL inside your source directory, migration, source, subscriber, and this type is Postgres. This is your data source. This ORM config.ts should return the instance of the data source. Okay, if it is doing it, then our task is simple. It is saying main. Just give me a second. Okay, so we are inside this application and we are playing with the migrations, right? That is something new for me also, but because they have changed something, I will remove these files. Now I will start from scratch what I have done. Okay, so what you need to do to enable the migrations? First of all, ORM config.ts, that should look like this, and inside your package JSON you need some scripts to generate, create, migrate, or run the migrations, right? So this is what you need to add. I will explain you a little bit more in with example. What we are doing here is, earlier the challenge is how to get this ORM config, how to pass this ORM config to our scripts, because now you need to pass this ORM config, and this ORM config.ts should give you the data source object. So I created this TypeORM script, and then I can use this npm run TypeORM migration generate, right? So this is the prefix I have added to all the scripts, right? So migration generate, migration show, migration run, migration revert. So let's say if I try to do is npm run here migration generate. I think I need to pass the name. So it is using this generate command. No changes in the database schema are found, cannot generate a migration. I'm planning to create one first. Generate you will do is whenever there is a change in the database, so it will create the migration. And the strange thing is it is creating it is in the root. So if I go to my ORM config, I specified my migration folder is source migrations. Okay, let me just delete this migration and let me create again. I see that it is creating these migration at two places, so it's still a mystery. Okay, created successfully. This I specified the path source migrations. Okay, it should be something like this. Let me see, is this the path is the issue or something else? TypeORM APIs. Inside we can create this file, right? Okay, so if I just specify .ts.js inside this, I mean, it is creating the migrations, but not in the directory which I'm looking for. It is creating in the root. That's what I don't want. So still not sure why it is creating it in the root. I copied these migrations for now here, and then I can just run the other commands. Package JSON, migrations, run, show, and revert, create. Okay, simply we already have seen the create is, let's say, the users table, right? So it will create this migration. I will move this to my migrations folder, and then I will run npm run migration run command. I mean, these migrations right now empty, but you will be doing the up down statements and adding some migrations, adding some code inside it. And migration generate. It is, I mean, no migrations file seeded. There is nothing to execute, no change in the database. So you need to pass, I think, the name, because we are generating the migration file. Okay, no change in the database schema were found, so cannot generate a migration file. So what we need to do is, there are multiple ways to create a migrations. So first of all, we can just use the sync true. We can create our entities, And in TypeORM options, so I will just remove these migrations for now, and I will try to explain how I'm doing it. There are multiple ways of doing it. So we already have this database module inside of packages, right? App database, and here in the TypeORM we are passing synchronize true. What that means? So here synchronize true means when you are changing the entity and you are running the application, the changes in the entities should be reflected in your database. But ideally for production it should be false, so that whatever the change you do in the entity should not be reflected to your database directly. I mean, you can write your migrations, you generate a migration file and you do it like this. Okay, so first of all, let's say I create a simple user table. I will just enable migration true, and here inside my application I will try to create an entity. Okay, so we have a domain user entity, right? So I will start this application. This application is already started. We already have this table in the database. I mean, I can just start this again. npm run start dev. What it will do is it has already docker container running, database connected, so it will start the application for us. Now here you can see it is just checking the any changes. If I just remove this, what will happen is it will try to remove this column. So I will try to show you the statement. If I can fetch something, because it's alter statement on the database, you can see here alter table users drop column address. Why? Because I removed it and this synchronization is true. Right now what I will do is, another thing is, let's say I will just change the synchronization to false in the package. So go to your database package module, synchronize false, stop the application, build the application so that we can see the changes coming from the package, and then we'll start the application. So it currently it should log, but synchronize is false, logging is true. Sorry for the typo. And what I will do is I can just rebuild this. So synchronization is false. Now whatever you do, the changes in the entity won't be reflected to the database directly because we are not synchronizing directly. In that case we can generate the migration by manually, just by ourselves. Okay, I added this particular column, write the SQL statement in the migration. So here we go to our application inside the entity. So we have only one entity, user entity.ts, and here I will add this thing. Currently it should not be, it would not be able to synchronize it because we are not synchronizing it. So npm run start dev. So I added this address column. It will just start the database, right? But we don't have the address column. So what I can do is I can try to run this command and try to see what happens. So we'll go to cd third application, npm run, go to the package JSON here, migration generate. So it should try to generate the migration by comparing the database. So user change cannot generate migration to create an new empty migrations. No change in the database schema found. Okay, so let's do one thing, synchronize true. Let's create the migration and we'll do it. So the migration is been created. We will move this to the migrations folder. Okay, and here what you need to do is you need to write your SQL statement, because what column, what table you are altering. You are altering the users table, put a proper name, and here in the up down statement you can just add, okay, what is the your SQL statement, and we can run this migration. So how to write a migration, right? So here we can do is await query runner dot query, and here we can write our SQL query. I will just say is alter table. What is the table name? Users or user? We need to check it that in the entity. App domain user entity. This is the table name users. Okay, come to our migrations. Alter table users. Add. This is a plain SQL, plain Postgres SQL. Alter table users. Add column. What is the column name? Address. This is JSON B null. Right, this is what you will do in the up, and statement in down is alter table users drop column address. That's it. So we have added a migrations. How can we run this migration now? This is the nullable column. We can just use this migration run utility. Migration run. So it should be able to run this migration. Is it running? I don't see it. Migration run. Okay, this is migration.ts file. src app migrations ORM config.ts migration run. There is a strange problem. Either it is looking for the migrations at the root. So I will do this like this. I put this file on the root. Okay, here also no migrations are pending. That means it is not able to find the migrations. Okay, so what we will do is go to ORM config, and I have specified that migrations are kept inside source migrations. Is it looking for inside the dist folder? That also I can check. I will remove the dist. Source migrations, we'll do the build again. npm run build, or this may be the problem because I put this /. Okay, yeah, that was the problem. I put the /. That's really wrong. And here you can see 0 migration already loaded, 1 migration were found in data source. It is running from this folder. Okay, I mean, I know there is a one problem in this demo is the migrations are creating in the root. That I will fix it, but migrations are being run from this folder. That is being expected, running as expected. Okay, nothing wrong. And here this is how you run the migration. So you can create the other migrations. Let's say create name is user alter migration create. This has been created at the root. That's not quite right. And here I can just say is users alter, and I can do something like this. This is the one way of running the migrations. I can just create another column and then I can drop it. This is the way I'm doing it since a long time. Or there is a reverse engineering is you do the synchronization. Let's say I'm just putting a data column data. This is one way, and here you just do a migration run. So you got the new migrations, it executed it, and everything is fine, right? Now another way of running the migration is, that's the my way of doing it. What I generally do is on the local I allow myself to synchronize the database based on the entity change. So this is app database source module synchronize true, and then I will just build this. I will build the database. I will build this package, application, and then I will just start this application again. And I can just do npm run start dev. What I'm going to do is, we are just saying okay, synchronize true. That means I allow you to synchronize the data whenever there is a change. So inside app domain we have the entity So the reverse engineering says is you create the entity, you do the changes, whatever you want to do. Let's say this is your final database, right? Now I remove the columns, it will drop both the columns, address and data. And data is already not there, so it has removed it already. Drop column, something like that. Okay, now we have, I will also show the database, what is the current state. So this is our current database, right? What I do is, whenever, first of all, I create these tables manually. Through the synchronization we can create any kind of table, right? I will create another entity. This is user entity. Let's say I'm creating address entity. So user, and here I will just say is user underscore, and the table name is city, unique false, city state. Let's say this is user address table, right? Now I'm doing a synchronized true. So what will happen is it will try to read both the entities, and it has created the other table which is user address. Let's see. Okay, this means, let me see. Okay, this should have created the another table which we have. I will restart this application. npm run start dev. Okay, I'm not importing this entity, sorry. So what I need to do is, in the user module, user entity, and then user address entity, because until unless we don't consume it anywhere, how can it be synchronized automatically? So I need to pass this in the db module. This is user module TypeORM.feature if you want to consume it in your services. Otherwise, inside the db module.for root you need to pass it. I'm talking about okay, this is the client module. Here, this is the module we have created, right? Here you need to pass these entities. Now it should be able to create the address table, right? Now I can also see that in the database user addresses has been created. Now this I have created locally. Now what I need to do is, I want to push the code. I need to create the migration for that, right? So I will just do is the export from SQL. I will export the SQL, and once you got the SQL, you can open that SQL and see what the SQL looks like, right? And you can put that SQL inside your migration, so that migration you can push it and your CI will execute that migration. So what I need to do now is, I will create a new migration. So go to this application, npm run. What is the command? Go to package JSON, npm run migration create. Name is user address. It has been created successfully. I will move this to here. I got already the SQL statement. So await query runner dot query, and I can put my SQL statement. And in the down statement, I can just do is a, so this is create, right? So if it is create, then the another is drop table. So here my SQL will be, you don't need to put public dot. Here you can see a drop table. Okay, that is the another migration. So if you try to create this, run this migrations, user address is already there, right? Create table if not exists. This you can do is, so in that case, if a table already exists, it won't be creating it, and there will be no migration failures. So here we can say create table if not exists. It will just execute this migration. User addresses, we already have migration created. We just need to run it. Okay, it executed it, right? I mean, obviously it didn't create this table. We already have this table. So what now migration contains? This is important. Migration is keeping the record of all the migrations which has been executed. So if you create a new migrations, how it will know that these migrations already loaded and this is the new one. I mean, this is like a default concept of how migrations are tracked across different ORMs. But this is how we do it with the TypeORM. And there is a slight change with the ORM, TypeORM 0.3. Otherwise, I already have a detailed sessions on the TypeORM Express, how to play with the migrations. There is just some tweaks here we are doing. Or you can also do the TypeORM APIs. Here I'm playing with the SQL, right? What you can do is you can also do something like TypeORM APIs. So it's not like you need to write the SQL. If I talk about something like this is one way. Here you are writing a SQL. You can also write some object classes. Let me see. Okay, I was talking about this. Right, in Sequelize, this pattern was popular. What we are doing is we are not writing SQL. We are just creating is, okay, create this table. We are specifying the columns. We are not familiar with the SQL, and I'm just writing object classes. Okay, I'm calling this table class and passing these parameters, creating the index, creating the another table, specifying the relationships. All these things can happen through this APIs also, but I'm not using it because I see lots of issues running here and there on this. So I'm just writing a plain SQL that is satisfying my need of having a couple of 5-6 tables and managing the migrations there. Otherwise, this is also one way of creating the migrations where you can drop. This is the down statement. So you'll be dropping the foreign key, column, table, dropping the index, dropping the table. And here you will be using add column, create table, create index, all these APIs. So you can explore this more and can adopt any one of these. The same way you need to just create a migration file. This is also doing the same using query runner interface. We are doing query runner.query. Here we are doing query runner.create table. That's the difference.